In the aftermath of the Gavin Lux trade, Nick Krall has said something that, honestly, it's got me worried.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. We are your daily source for all things Cincinnati Reds. I'm Stephen Offenbaker. He's Jeff Carr. We have a combined 14 years of experience, something like that, covering the Cincinnati Reds in podcast form. We love baseball. We love the Reds. We have taken our love for this team, our love for this game, and we have turned it into information for you. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's podcast, we are going to break down what exactly it was Nick Krall had to say about the acquisition of Gavin Lux. We're also going to talk about what, if anything, the Reds are going to do next this offseason. And then we're going to hear from Jeff Snider from over at Locked On Dodgers to talk about kind of who Gavin Lux is and who he's been as a member of the Dodgers. I really dial you in on what the Reds are getting in the form of their new second, third, shortstop baseman. I don't know. We're going to find out where he's going to play. We'll hear from Nick Krall on that on today's episode that is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets back, guaranteed win or lose. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started today. And Jeff, let's get started right here, right now with Nick Krall and what he had to say about this deal that brought Gavin Lux from the Dodgers to the Reds.
Yeah, because there is a great clip that's going around. I wouldn't say it's viral, but definitely going around the Red sphere. And there's even a piece over at CincinnatiRedstock.com talking about this where, Nick Krall was asked, are there more moves coming? And this was his response.
We've got a little bit, not a ton. I think we're just kind of working through that right now, we looked at one of the things we looked at was trading the draft pick, saved us some money there as well. So instead of trading a prospect and picking the player, which we could help put into Major League payroll as well.
And I paraphrased on the question there because the question was more so, is there flexibility for more? And quite frankly, Steve, I think there's a lot of folks that are excited whenever he said, we've got a little bit more. And they missed the second part because the second part is really where the heavy stuff gets to. Because if you're talking about the money that you save by trading a compensatory draft pick, oh boy, you don't have a lot of flexibility.
You remember that commercial where the old guy's with the fishing pole and he's like, I got $1. And he's pulling the dollar back.
You almost had it.
You almost had it. That's very much how that felt, Jeff. Look, you're absolutely right. If we're talking about the money they saved from a compensatory draft pick impacting Major League payroll, what that means is there is no big press conference free agent signing coming. They're going to have to give away money to bring on money, which means they're going to have to trade away somebody to bring in somebody. And if there is a free agent signing, it's going to be low level. It's going to be somebody that's not maybe a role player, but not an impact kind of guy. So, the talk of Anthony Santander, the talk of, going out and maybe trading for Luis Robert, like those money, that's not going to happen. We can move on from that and now start to really kind of talk about this team being this team and what it is. We're going to talk a lot today, even about the impact of all that, especially given what Nick has to say about where Gavin's going to play and what more he said about where everybody's going to play, but we're going to get into all that.
Yeah, because, and I definitely want to dive into that because Gavin Lux does bring a lot to this team, if not exactly what we were looking for in the beginning, but I feel like Gavin Lux himself is a solid move. It's just, he's a solid move. That's a move that you make. And in July or August, depending on where the team is, you look back on this offseason and you say, boy, that was a smart move that the Reds made. But I don't think it's a top shelf move. And we said that on our initial reaction episode. And I don't think that top shelf move is coming. And that's why I am worried about that quote that Nick Krall had. Now, it's interesting because when you think of Gavin Lux, when you think of Brady Singer, keeping Nick Martinez, getting Jose Trevino, all this stuff, the things that the Reds have done that are mostly marginal moves, when you compare it to the rest of the division, though, the Reds don't look all that bad. Now they didn't go get a Kyle Tucker like the Cubs did, but they have made a bunch of different little moves that could set them up nicely within the division. And Nick Krall was asked how he feels about where the Reds stack up against their division rivals.
I mean, we've got a good division. It's the Brewers were really good last year. The Cubs have added some players. The Cardinals still have some really good players, and the Pirates made some additions to that. With obviously they have their pitching staff, and they've got Horwitz, the hitter that they got from Toronto. They're still good teams. I think we look at it as we've got about 6 more weeks of the offseason left, and we're going to try to do the best we can to improve this club.
And I'm still thinking, Steve, like when it comes to what he's talking about there, we've got so much more time to add to this club. Is the biggest move that they have left? I mean, I think there might be another trade within the market. Maybe they go acquire an outfielder that's not going to be a press conference outfielder, but a solid guy. But is the best move that they could make now signing Tyler Stevenson to a long-term extension? Because he has not yet signed to avoid arbitration amongst the 6 other players that have.
No, that would be a big deal. That, there's 2 bare cupboards when you look through the farm system. One's the outfield and the other is the catching position. So locking Tyler up for a multi-year deal, I think goes a long way in addressing that particular need. And, it gives a little stability to Tyler. It tells Tyler that, hey, you're our guy. So yeah, that would be a big move. And that might be where that little bit of money that's left goes. That might exactly be where they spend that money. I agree with you that if there is a move, it won't be giant. They can still go get an outfielder, but it's not going to be, stop the presses, breaking news. We need somebody to hold up a jersey kind of thing. It won't be one of those moves. With that clip and him talking about the division, obviously he's not going to say like, oh man, the Cubs got so good, they're going to kick everybody's butt. But I listen, I think he undersold the Cubs a little bit. I'm a little worried about the Cubs heading into next season and the additions that they've made. I'm going to forever be worried about the Brewers up until such time that they stop beating us on a regular basis. If the Reds can, have a breakthrough against them, maybe I won't worry about them as much. The Cardinals are rebuilding. I'm not particularly worried about the Cardinals, and the Pirates are just kind of always going to be the Pirates.
They're the Pirates.
So, yeah. So I think he undersold the Cubs there, but I get why. I get it. I get what he's saying. And I do believe, Jeff, I believe he's still working the phone lines. I believe that Nick Krall's still out there trying to find, some kind of a fit that will address some needs. This team needs another outfielder. Whether that's going to be the right-handed power hitting bat, no, it's not going to be that. But there could be a serviceable righty they bring in to kind of round out that outfield group, so that you're not reliant on Stuart Fairchild completely, and you make Stuart Fairchild the last outfielder in the group, where you can really pick and choose his spots, which is what they need to do with him for him to be effective anyway. So there could be a move like that. It's not going to be sexy. Nobody's going to be printing t-shirts about it, but there are things he could do with that outfield group to at least get them a little bit better organized, have a little bit more depth, and be a little bit better with the situational roles heading into 2025.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because Jake Fraley, they avoided arbitration with. He got a little over $3 million in his raise. You look at some other guys that they signed. They signed Nick Lodolo. They signed Jose Trevino. They did sign Gavin Lux to a little over $3.3 million on his arbitration, or the deal to avoid arbitration. Brady Singer gets a little over $8.7 million. We're putting the payroll now here, at least according to Spot Track, at just over $99 million. And if the reports earlier on this offseason are believed to be true, and it seems as though they are currently playing out, the Reds payroll is not going to get much bigger than it was last year, which means that they're only $6 million away, and they still need to sign Sam Maul, and they still need to figure out exactly what Tyler Stevenson's contract is. Is it a 1-year deal? Is it a multi-year deal? So there's not going to be a lot of flexibility to go get that big bopper. And the question was asked to Nick Krall after this trade on, is Gavin Lux going to play the outfield? Is he going to be part of that outfield equation next year?
Yeah, we're like I said before, we're going to look at him at second base, the outfield, DH, some shortstop, some third base in spring training, and see what works, what doesn't work. And I think it's going to sort itself out in spring training where best everyone fits and to go into the season.
And I think it was the end of that clip that I really want to focus on here, because it sounds like spring training is going to be mondo importance. We'll tell you why here in just a minute. Did you make a resolution to save more money this year, or at least be a little bit better financially responsible? Rocket Money can help you out with all of that, because Rocket Money has so many different financial tools within one app that they will help you increase your financial confidence when it comes to 2025. It brings everything together all in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals that you want to hit in 2025. For me, one of the best features is that subscription tracker, because I've used it to cancel services that I wasn't even aware that I was paying for anymore, and I wasn't even using them. Plus, they've got awesome things like their goals feature, and I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future. No more stressing about budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. rocketmoney.com/locked-on. We are talking Cincinnati Reds today, all day, every week, every month, all year long. Make sure you subscribe to get at least 30 minutes of Red Stock in your feed every single day. And Steve, I played that clip of Nick Krall's answer. And actually, it was Tommy Thrall that asked him the question of, will Lux be playing in the outfield? And him saying, well, yeah, he's going to play all over the place. But he ended the clip by saying, spring training is going to be big because it's going to help us figure out a lot of different positions. Steve, I don't think there's anybody that's got a position penciled in next to their name right now for the Reds.
Yeah, early on, right after they signed Tito, we hear Ellie De La Cruz is going to be the shortstop. That's really the only position they've guaranteed. And I mean, obviously Tyler Stevenson's going to catch, but they're not necessarily stuck with that. I still think the best version of this defense is Ellie De La Cruz at third base with Matt McLean at short, Gavin Lux at second, and then you figure out first base between Candelario and CES, and then Spencer Steer is free to move into all of those positions as you create opportunities in the outfield. So for me,
wait, Steve, you're missing Noelvi Marte. I saw him doing workouts in the sand and hitting BP home runs on Twitter.
Just stop. Noelvi Marte is going to be buying barbecue next to the Louisville Bats ballpark. That's where he's going to be.
Hey, I heard it's good.
It's really good, but that's beside the point. Listen, that's the best version of this Reds defense is moving Ellie to third base. So will they do that? I don't know. They may stick with the, hey, Ellie's our guy. Ellie's our shortstop. Fine. It's not the best version of the defense, but you can still work around that. What it means is that a couple things. One, a lot of guys may be asked to move around, not just Gavin Lux. But more interesting to me is if you take that clip of what he just said about what Nick Krall just said about where Gavin Lux is going to play, and you play it like at the exact same time as you play the answer he had from last year of where Jonathan India is going to play. Like the only thing that's different is the name of the player. Like it was a plug and play really for what they envisioned the role to be. The difference here, and we hit on this when we did the live right after the trade for Gavin Lux coming in. The key difference here is that Gavin Lux can actually play decent defense at all those positions. And we're going to hear from Jeff Snider here coming up in a little bit. He's going to break that down pretty good, I think. The defense is going to be better. So for me, that's the difference. So if Gavin Lux really ends up being the super utility, and I don't know that that's the best use of him, but if he does, I think that's better than what Jonathan India would have been as the super utility. So it's an upgrade. We talked about them not making that big splash signing. They're going to have to get incrementally better at a lot of places. Well, here's one place where they got better. They got better with a guy that can play multiple positions well defensively.
And that kind of plays into what Nick Krall had to say when he was asked. He's like, okay, what is the motivation? What was the general idea behind acquiring Gavin Lux?
If you look at our team last year, I think, people argue we had too many infielders to begin the year, and obviously that didn't play itself out. We were last in WAR in third base, first base, and DH. So if he comes in, we look at him as a guy that's going to play second base, play some outfield, and play and DH some in spring training. We'll also give him a look at third and short and see where it is, and see where he is defensively with all of those positions. But we think that he's a quality left-handed hitter that just lengthens our lineup out.
Can you play positionless baseball? Because it sounds like Nick Krall wants the Reds to play positionless baseball.
I like how you keep asking, like, how many infielders can you legally play? By the way, shout out to Nick Krall. In this press conference, we got weighted runs created plus, we got WAR, we got
talking about what FanGraphs had to say about something.
Yeah. I mean, that was pretty refreshing. I mean, just as an aside, it's nice to hear, the executives coming out and talking a little bit more than batting average and home run and RBI totals. That
right.
Just kudos to him for that. I appreciate the use of the more advanced metrics.
No, I agree with that. And I think that the important part here is that Nick Krall understood that the lineup needed adjusting. The lineup needed some help. And Gavin Lux can do that if he doesn't do that from a left-handed pitcher's perspective, because that's still going to need to be something that they figure out. I saw John Morosi was on MLB Network, and they were talking about this deal. And he said he even speculated, and I think even FanGraphs has Gavin Lux penciled in mostly at third base. They have the idea, and you'll even like this more because they expand on it. Gavin Lux at third base, platooning with Noelvi Marte. And so Noelvi Marte faces lefties, Gavin Lux faces righties, and that's your third base scenario. I don't know that that's what I see. And there's actually a lot that I get into with Jeff Snider about that, where we talk about, as he was coming up to the minor leagues, especially once he hit AAA, it was clear that his arm was not strong enough to be an everyday shortstop. So they moved him to second base. A little bit of what we heard about Jonathan India. Remember, Jonathan India, there were some questions about his arm strength and his arm accuracy, if it would hold up every day at third base. And so they tried him out at second, found out that it worked. So I think that the peripheral positions that Nick Krall mentions and the peripheral positions that people are suggesting that he may get a look at, I think those are more so as needed. And second base and DH are his main positions.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. I can't see him as not a second baseman. I think that's his best use, really. I mean, that's where he's going to give you his best defense. And it just, there's so many better players on this team that could play third base. There's so many better fits, I guess, that are everyday guys. I mean, Ellie's the easy answer. You can move Ellie over there and you're done. Spencer Steer is an easy answer. He can play over there and you're done. But then you've got the outfield problem. So I just can't see penciling Lux in over there when it's not his best position. And definitely it is not going to be Noelvi Marte. I don't know where this stuff keeps coming from. I mean, if Wishing made it so, cool. He can't hit. He's going to have to go figure out how to hit. He couldn't hit when he was in the big leagues last year. He can't hit in any of the winter league stuff he's doing right now. He's not going to suddenly be able to hit when he gets to Goodyear. He's got some things to figure out. And I don't know if he can figure them out, because maybe, just maybe, his problem was he's no longer enhanced, and you can't fix that.
I'd be intrigued, because I don't think I know much about Noelvi Marte outside of his scouting report. I think that he's still got a lot to prove, and I think he'll prove it at some point this year. But we have said a whole lot about, well, McClain can move to short. McClain, Gavin Lux is going to play second base. What about Matt McClain to the outfield? Nick Krall addressed that as well.
We'll figure that out in spring training. I think, with just being able to add a cost-controlled left-handed hitter that is hit well against right-handed pitching. There's an interesting article in FanGraphs that Jay Jaffe wrote about him and some of the changes he made in the second half, which was interesting. Just trying to swing harder and do a little bit more damage. And I think he had the 13th highest WRC plus in the second half. But with with him, it's a guy that we feel has a chance to come in and be in our lineup and lengthen that lineup out.
I find it intriguing, Steve, because what he didn't say as the answer, because the question was, does the Gavin Lux edition move Matt McLain to center field, or at least make it easier for Matt McLain to play center field? I find it interesting that he did not answer that question.
He did not, and he didn't say no. He did. Matt McLain's our second baseman. He didn't say that.
Nope.
That's not
He
what
didn't
he
even
said.
say Matt McLain's an infielder. Yeah.
No, I think that a lot of players are going to be asked to move around, Jeff. I know there's something for the consistency of just like knowing where you're going to play every day. And I know that Matt, in his heart of hearts, has always viewed himself as a shortstop. I would like to see him get to return there. But that being said, I also know that Matt is going to do what's best for the team. And if what's best for the team is him to play every fourth or fifth day in the outfield, that's what Matt will do. He's not going to say no. So I think we're going to see a lot of guys moving around in spring training. I think spring training games are going to be really interesting. I hope under the new broadcasting, whatever it's going to be, we get to see more spring training games this coming year. We don't know about that yet. So I hope we get to see that process play out and watch these guys move around and try and figure out positions so that we can kind of make an informed evaluation.
Yeah, you're not going to want to ignore what the Reds do in spring training. There's a lot of years that we say, yeah, whatever, the roster's set, the lineup's set, things like that. That's not the case this year. Or at least the lineup feels mostly set if everybody's healthy. It's where everybody plays that's going to be fascinating to see unfold. But I know this. We get a better perspective on Gavin Lux coming up next from a guy who's watched his entire career up to this point, as Jeff Snider from Locked On Dodgers joins us.
You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets to events with Gametime. Jeff and I tell you about Gametime all of the time. This is what we use. We head down to the banks. We find our favorite restaurant. We have some dinner, have a couple drinks, and then right about time for first pitch, we jump on Gametime. We grab our tickets and we head over to the ballpark. We get great deals on tickets. A great feature of Gametime. You go on there, you get all in pricing. You know exactly what you're going to pay for the tickets that you're looking at. If you're on the road and you're going to a venue that you've never been to before, well, they've got you covered there as well because they show you a view from your seat. You're going to know exactly what it is that you are getting. Just head over to Gametime today, download the app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. That's $20 off their already greatly reduced prices. Terms do apply. Again, just create your account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. If you're watching us here on YouTube, make sure you click the like and subscribe button so you never miss an episode of Locked On Reds. And if you can't be here on YouTube with us, take us on the road with you. We'll go in the car, we'll go to the gym, we'll go wherever you want to go because we are on pretty much every single audio podcasting feed that's out there. If you can't find us someplace you want us to be, shoot Jeff a message. He'll make it happen.
Well, as most of you know by now, the Reds have acquired Gavin Lux from the Los Angeles Dodgers, and we all know he is not a right-handed power-hitting outfield bat, but he meant something to the Dodgers, and I wanted to bring in Jeff Snider from Locked On Dodgers really to break it down and to kind of give us the lowdown on what we can expect from him because, I mean, Jeff, Gavin's got 2 World Series rings to his name. I know that he didn't really play in the first one, but he was a part of the team that got you there, and then he was a part of the second World Series last season. So what exactly does he bring to the table, as he's not exactly fitting the billing of everything that me and Steve have been beating the drum that the Reds need this offseason?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I've read a couple of things saying that maybe the Reds acquired Lux to be kind of a utility guy who can back up at a lot of positions, or when Matt McLain inevitably gets hurt again, fill in for him, but the funny thing is, I think the main reason the Dodgers traded him is because of his lack of positional flexibility, which is he's played a lot of positions, but has only really played one of them well, and that's second base. And even that, a lot of Dodger fans, I was telling you before we hit record, he was pretty polarizing among Dodger fans. I think a good 30% of Dodger fans would tell you he's the worst defensive second baseman ever. They'd be wrong. He was actually a pretty solid defensive second baseman last year. But, they tried him at shortstop. before he played shortstop actually in 2021 before the Dodgers traded for Trey Turner after Corey Seager got hurt. Gavin Lux played shortstop, did fine. His arm is not weak. It's strong enough to play shortstop. It's not going to be the best arm in the league at shortstop. Obviously, nowhere near Ellie De La Cruz's arm. Accuracy is not his strong suit throwing from shortstop. And so that's why they moved him to second base. He was going to be the everyday shortstop in 2023, and then he blew out his ACL in spring training. And so 2024, they came to the season with the plan of he's going to be our everyday shortstop, and then he just couldn't make the throws in spring training. And so they switched on the fly, moved Mookie Betts to shortstop, put Gavin Lux to second base. But you know what? He was still recovering from that ACL tear, and I assume his arm would be better at shortstop, but obviously not when you're the defending World Series champions, hoping to win another World Series. You're not going to put all your eggs in we hope Gavin Lux can play shortstop basket. And so they have Mookie Betts back at shortstop now. And honestly, I think that if Lux had more positional flexibility, he wouldn't have been traded, because right now the Dodgers' only plan B, if Mookie Betts can't play shortstop, if it doesn't work out, is to move Betts back to second base. And Lux would have been the odd man out at that point. So basically, they couldn't go into the season risking the chance of Mookie having to move to second base and then not having anything to do with Lux. And so they decided to trade him now. But like I said, he has played second base, shortstop. He's played the outfield. There's a funny clip you've probably seen of him playing the outfield. He crashed into the wall, hurt himself. And the next day, the Dodgers taped the outline of his body on the wall, and AJ Pollock, Cody Bellinger, and Mookie Betts all went out and kissed the outline of his body on their way to their positions. He was better than that. That would give you the impression he was a terrible outfielder. He wasn't a terrible outfielder. He's a good athlete. He's got decent speed out there. Doesn't get good reads, but a lot of people who haven't played outfield in a long time don't get great reads right at first. So
right.
I think he can play a lot of different positions. I've never seen him at third base. I assume he could do third base okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's kind of what I wanted to even focus in a little bit on, because I've seen some folks saying, oh, hey, they could create a platoon with him and Noel V. Marte at third base. But kind of your assessment of his arm makes me think otherwise.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Interestingly, third base is actually probably most of the time a little bit shorter throw than shortstop, at least at the extremes. And so I think his arm would do fine at third base. I think it would do fine even at shortstop. And so I think he could be a utility guy. Probably not going to be a standout defensively anywhere, but he could be the kind of guy who you can put at a lot of different positions. Whether it is just, late inning stuff where, okay, we brought in this guy for defense, so that bumps this guy here. I don't know how much the Reds actually do that. The Dodgers are constantly moving guys all over the diamond in the middle of the game. You have Kike Hernandez playing 5 different positions in one game, and, a lot of that. And it does seem to me, from an outsider's point of view, like the Reds do have several guys who can play multiple positions. And so there could be some of that mixing and matching that he could slot into pretty well. Again, like, he's not a power hitter. He's not right-handed. He's basically the opposite of what you've been beating the drum for. Although in Cincinnati, I mean, Lux actually, he does have some pop. He's not going to hit 40 home runs for you. But in Cincinnati, if he plays every day, I wouldn't be shocked at all if he hits 25.
That would be interesting, because there are definitely a couple of guys that we can count on to do that for the lineup. And if we add that to him, then I feel like the overall team structure got stronger by acquiring him. And the interesting part about this, you saying the Dodgers traded him for a lack of positional flexibility, I really think that's the reason that the Reds traded Jonathan India, because it's clear that Matt McLain is the best second baseman on the roster. But like you mentioned, there's the injury history. There's the injury risk. And so you wanted to have somebody behind him, but you can't just have a guy sitting on the bench waiting for a guy to get hurt. He's got to be able to play other positions, and India can't. And Gavin Lux looks like he can. The other kind of question that I wanted to get your take on is, you mentioned the injury. He misses 2023 because of the ACL tear. And then when you look at his splits from last year, before the All-Star break and after the All-Star break, he's two totally different players. Would you say that he officially got past that ACL injury in the second half, or was that kind of one of those things where, a good baseball player is just going to play good baseball at some point?
Probably a combination of those things. At the All-Star break, he went home to Wisconsin. His uncle, Augie Schmidt, is a legendary hitting coach in Wisconsin, and he spent the All-Star break with his uncle and figured some things out. And it was night and day. It was literally, he came back for the All-Star break, and you're like, oh, he figured something out. Just like Kike Hernandez came back for the All-Star break. Oh, he got glasses. Now he can see, so he can hit too. Who would have thunk that seeing the ball helps? But it was very clearly he made some changes and got better. And then he had an 899 OPS after the All-Star break, which is very, very good. And that's why, I was going to beat the drum for keep Gavin Lux, but that was because I'm also one of the rare Dodger fans who thinks Mookie Betts is going to be fine at shortstop. So I understand if the Dodgers aren't covering it, the Mookie's going to stay short, then it made sense to trade Lux. But yeah, Lux hit really well. He did have his ups and downs even in the second half, but every player has ups and downs throughout every season. And when your ups and downs all add up to an 899 OPS in those 2.5 months, that's really, really good for a middle infielder, and even good enough if he's playing some outfield.
I do love this acquisition just because of the depth that it brings to the Reds, because honestly, I think he is an upgrade over Santiago Espinal. I think that's kind of what the Reds were hoping out of Espinal whenever they brought him back. They signed him for less than what a lot of websites had his arbitration projection to be. They avoided arbitration with him. But overall, that makes things a little bit better. From your perspective, you kind of mentioned you wanted to keep him. Having thought of Gavin Lux moving into this next year, how much playing time would you have expected him to get with the Dodgers versus how much he's probably going to play 140, probably 145 games here for the Reds? Was that what they were looking at with the Dodgers?
I think so. He's too good to not play pretty much every day. And I think that kind of leans into that, because if they do have to move Mookie Betts back to second base, it would have been a waste to have Gavin Lux on your roster, who's a good, solid, everyday Major League Baseball player, and not having a spot for him to play. I think he's too good to be a bench guy. They have, Chris Taylor and Austin Barnes. That's who you want on the bench, guys who are bad at baseball. Gavin Lux is too good to be on the bench. But I think it's going to be interesting to see him as a utility guy if that's the route the Reds go, because he is an excellent athlete. He's now almost 2 years now removed from the ACL surgery, has a full year under his belt of playing time after the injury. And I think we might start to see some of that athleticism come through a little bit more than we did in 2024.
It was great talking with another Jeff that wasn't just me in the mirror, that most people will find it less crazy than my typical conversations with Jeffs. But hey, that's where we're going to end today's podcast. Thanks everybody so much for checking out today's Locked On Reds podcast. We will be with you. We're monitoring all the arbitration deals, and hopefully we will hear some good news about a possible long-term extension for Tyler Stevenson coming up here soon. We will be all over that if that's the case, but we will definitely be covering all of the different arbitration moves and what they mean for the payroll coming up next week. There's also plenty to look forward to with this spring training. What are we going to find out? As Nick Krall says, that we will be looking into lots of different things. Speculate wildly on the upcoming Locked On Reds podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of those. We'll be with you all off season long. And if you missed our initial reaction to Gavin Lux, we had an episode on that. We've got a lot of great stuff already this offseason, breaking down all the different Reds moves and things like that, and why the Reds are ahead of the curve with Terry Francona as their manager. So much has already happened, so much to get to. Make sure you never miss an episode. Hit that subscribe button. But until then, Steve, what can people expect from you and me?
We're going to gather up all of that news, all that information, all those rumors, and break down everything that's happening right here, keeping you locked on Reds every single day. Talking to yourself in the mirror.
It only happens once a day, maybe twice.
You're good enough. You're smart enough. And doggone it, people like you.